Around 40 years ago, America embraced an economics of aspiration. And it was packaged in a fancy-sounding philosophy called neoliberalism and the fantasy of being rich. So, how do you do it? First, you have to make sure people see themselves not as civilians, not as a citizen, where things that are good for the whole also benefit them, but as individual consumers. And how do you convince people of this? Well, for one thing, you have to break down their sources of community and power. One tangible way you can do that is by crafting policy that attacks union membership and other workplace associations. Another way is by making their lives so hard that they actually just don't have time for community or organizing because they are so focused on their own survival. You make the constant threat of layoffs a looming presence, so they are always operating from a posture of fear and competition with others. And this is all crucial because atomized workers have no leverage. Atomized workers are perfect consumers because they have to buy everything that they need to survive. Now, this is where the next step comes in. You structure it such that everything they need to survive is sold to them for profit and controlled by corporations or private equity firms with immense state-sanctioned power, and then you call that freedom of choice. Now that concept is all necessary to make things hum, right? And to sell the idea that cutting taxes for rich people and corporations would make everyone richer. You tell people that this is best because natural market competition will keep prices low, quality will stay high, and good news, then we won't even need the tax revenue from the corporations and rich people anymore. Now after a while, people might start to notice that things aren't actually getting better, so how do you combat that? Well, you have to show them that it's possible to succeed under these circumstances. So what do? You have to create a media landscape that exalts billionaires. You have to put them on panels. You have to put them on magazine covers. You have to make television shows about them. And it's very important to highlight rags to riches stories because these are the exceptions to the rule that help prove the rule. It's also helpful if there's literally anyone in society that has very little power that you can blame these problems on. Now, this might create a little bit of psychic disorientation and spiritual confusion because on some level there's a part of them that's going to recognize that in order for the minority to have that, the majority must have nothing or close to nothing. This is the time when it's very important to double down on the idea of laziness and that people are asking for handouts. Nothing is going to shut them up faster than telling them that they are asking for a handout. But you still have to help them enough that they won't revolt. So what do? Explode the availability of personal debt. You make it so that they have to take out massive loans to afford everything that they need, from their homes to their educations to their medical care. Now, this is actually perfect because not only does it keep people in line, but it also creates more financing that you can make more money from. You make the financing itself for profit, not just the product or service they're buying with that financing. And this works best for things that people really need because then they don't have a choice. And then when they get a little bit angry, they're a little bit restless, and they're all weirdly nostalgic for like the 1950s and they don't know why. Time when they had just won the 40-hour work week, they had Social Security for the first time. It was the last time that labor protections had been passed in the last few decades, right? The top marginal tax rate was 91%. You can't let people recognize that that is the part they actually miss. You have to make sure that instead, what they think they miss is the gender roles. In fact, the more that you can associate the prosperity with the gender roles and not with the labor power, the better. You might be thinking, Katie, you're a personal finance person. How do you fit into all of this? Are you saying personal finance is useless? No, in fact, I would say this context that I just laid out is the very reason why personal finance advice has become critical, and that much of what we perceive as personal finance issues are actually just failures of governance. And that we can have much more interesting and fruitful conversations about what is possible and how we move forward from the posture that the fact that you need to have such a deep understanding of how to navigate this financial landscape of booby traps is actually proof of the problem.